Welcome back to another One Piece card game video. You saw the title. We have OP05 coming out pretty much tomorrow, depending on when this comes out, or at least in the next couple days. And I'm going to go through all of the cards you should be picking up, or at least considering to buy. And of course, the decks that go with it. A good 80% of you are clicking on these videos and not subscribing. What are you doing? Do you just like seeing my face? I don't understand. Go ahead and subscribe for me. In no particular order, in no priority, we're starting out with red. So the few cards that we have here are Fire Fist, Karasu, and Inazuma. I've actually done deck profiles on a couple different things here, but the most recent one is Bella Betty. She can take advantage of every single one of these cards, but you know, a lot of red decks can. Despite the same name as the 3 cost, the 2 cost basically can minus 4,000 something for the duration of the turn. And then if you have 2 or less life, you get to KO something that has 0 less power. What came to mind for me at first is, of course, Ace. Ace does, you know, he already has a plethora of red cards and things that are in archetype that can help him to minus and get rid of things over and over again. And of course, we explored that quite a bit when Whitebeard was gone and Zoro was gone. Well, not so much gone, but weakened, and as well as in Law. There's gonna be a lot of leaders to consider in red, and you know, obviously you can go with Ace, you can go with Zoro, you can go with even red, purple, Law. All of these quote-unquote red leaders can take a hold of Fire Fist. Ace with removal, Zoro with, you know, technical removal if you really wanted to, especially if you're playing the other 2 cards. A little bit of Revolution Army archetype cards here. Sabo can definitely take a hold of this. He's already playing a lot of Revolution Army stuff. Garp is a good one too, but you know, it's a little bit of niche. But he is a multicolored leader. He is going to get to 2 or less to get that extra effect. So that way, like Crossfire or something like that is a little less good when compared to Fire Fist. Now, the reason why I brought up Karasu and Inazuma for Zoro is because, you know, both of these effects fit him perfectly, where Karasu basically is saying that like all the small beaters that you already have, whether they're 2k, 3k, 4k, whatever, plus your leader effect, you basically have a double leader effect. So like having Karasu in your Zoro just as a kill turn card is really, really good. It just puts on that much pressure and makes them waste that many more cards. And of course, I haven't really done any videos on the unrestricted stuff with Zoro and Whitebeard and stuff like that, but that stuff is coming, and this is definitely going to be something I'm considering. Same thing with Inazuma, where in really any red deck, but especially Zoro, because now Marco's coming back. You pay 5 of Marco, you use leader effect with the Dawn, and then you play out Inazuma because you immediately have a 7k power or more character on board. And just remember that both the Karasu and as well as Inazuma, they just need 2 Dawn underneath for anything like that's a 5k or anything. You can use Dawn for anything as far as the when attacking effects and as well as the Inazuma effect in general. I think red's not too bad in general. Like, you know, it's you know, it didn't get like super big support, but I think in general, you know, it's really good in archetype cards out of the set, and these 3 are generic enough to be put in a lot of different decks. Let's move on to purple, which actually has 2 pages worth of cards. And the reason why I did this is because, you know, all of the decks that I made with the red purple 3 captains has gotten a good boost pretty much out of all, well, not all, but a good amount of the cards in the purple archetype for OP05. Gamma Knife is really good for Law because now instead of minusing 3k with Gordon, you can pay an extra 1, lose that extra Dawn, you know, trigger off that kid effect or whatever it may be, and then minus 5k, which means now you can take down like a Big Mom or any of the big black cards, any of the big blue cards, anything that's 8k or less, you can now take down and bottom deck. So, you know, Gamma Knife is a really good addition, maybe 1 or 2 of, and that trigger effect is really helpful over time. I'm not even gonna try to say the 5 drops name, Nosuke. He's really good in red, purple Luffy, as well as Kaido. Like really any ramp deck that utilizes purple cards, you know, those type of decks. But really, red, purple Luffy, because if you're now playing the one cost Nami that looks at the top 5, you can now search this out since it is a Straw Hat. You have that extra rush card that is a 2K, basically your own Jozu in archetype. So you're probably gonna have that 8 or more Dawn in red, purple Luffy, which is why it's gonna be the best deck to use this in. But you can really throw this in any purple deck, to be honest, because it is a 2K. It is something that is generic enough for you to have late game, and if you put 5 Dawn underneath, you still have a 9K swing pretty much at any time. Is it worth it? I don't know, but I mean, hey, you have that extra swing if you really need it. Now, this 3-drop for Trafalgar Law is basically one of the better cards for red, purple Law. If you are playing the Heart Pirates archetype, I have another searcher for that archetype as well, but it is a consistent searcher when attacking effect, where it is a 5K. You can play it off the leader effect. You can do a lot of stuff with it. The only downside is that it doesn't have counter power. That's the way of balancing it, I guess. That's the way I see it anyway. But yeah, this card is great. Not much to say about it. If you're playing the Heart Pirate stuff, you definitely want this in your deck, especially if you're playing it turn 2 going first. Now the 10-drop Luffy I've talked about a few times before in other videos. He is on play -10. You bottom deck everything on your field, and then you go take another turn. Basically, the activate main, you pay 1, and then you can add another card from your Dawn deck instead of active. So red, purple Luffy and purple Luffy, this is basically the best card for it, or the 2 best decks for this card. You can play it in any deck technically, because you can still use the activate main for the following turn and go to 3 Dawn. However, in order to get the 12K swing and then effectively the 4K or 9K swing or 8K swing, I always get the math wrong. I believe it's a 9K swing, because you have the 4 Dawn after you use the both Luffy effects when you're at 0 Dawn. But it is a really cool card. It's an awesome secret rare. I've talked about it before, a little niche, but it does win you games when your opponent does not prepare for it. All right, next up is the rest of the purple stuff. So these cards it should be self-explanatory, right? A lot of the purple stuff really do support the red, purple 3 captain stuff. The useless kid, the 5-drop, literally can go in everywhere. It can go anywhere, because a lot of purple stuff can minus cards, or at least minus Dawn, that is. Purple Luffy and any of the 3 captains can utilize it pretty much at any time, especially if you're playing this with Magellan. That's usually the play in general. Z, hey, pet deck is really quite good as well. You know, purple Kaido, Magellan obviously is going to have a really good time with this card. And of course, Iceberg, which his leader effect will just trigger this at any time. We have a searcher, just like we had for the previous searcher that we talked about. We have the killer searcher that looks like the Kid Pirates, but also we have the event card that has the trigger effect that activates look at the top 3, Straw Hat, Kid Pirates, or Heart Pirates, which honestly, there's quite a lot, and it's really perfect for any of the red, purple stuff. It gives you a lot of options when it comes down to deck building. Zoro basically is just really good for red, purple Luffy. Like if you play this on curve, like going second, you basically have 2 different ways to ramp. Because usually what happens is that you play this on second, you can play a Miss All Sunday on 5, or something else like Gene Bart on 5. You double ramp and then you use leader effect, and then you're coasting. That's pretty much it. That's you're good to go on your ramps. It is searchable. It has a counter power, which is better than something like Jack or Miss All Sunday as far as like the trade-offs of not having counter power or pitching a card. You know, this card is just really good, especially again if you're going to be using the now unbanned Nami Searcher. Next up is green. There's not really too much to talk about green. I'm going to make it pretty quick. The Stickum 2 cost event card is usually, I mean, I think this is good for any green deck. I think this is like another option compared to Punk Gibson, right? The trigger effect is really quite good because like if they're swinging with the 5k or a 5 cost and they swing into this, you can just easily pop it. And now the KO with a rested card of 3 or less is also pretty good because now you can use this against Zoro or something similar that plays small bodies. And if you're playing like the green purple Dofi mirror, then this is perfect to go against their film package. The 1-drop Trafalgar again is a really good generic answer for anything that is like a blocker or something that you want to swing at. It's just literally a 1 cost that has counter power. It is searchable, quote unquote, with the new 1 cost, which I should have added to this. So if anybody's going to be saying in the comments, I should have added to this, it is the 1 cost Baby 5, which does search the Don Quixote pirates. So any of these cards are basically searchable, and she acts as a blocker because usually people just swing at it. And then Birdcage is perfect for green purple Dofi. It is a whole archetype. It is a whole different deck than you're used to. I think you can probably play the film package with this, but honestly, if you really want to, or you should, I should say, you should play into the archetype that keeps everything that is 5 or less rested, and then KOing them at 10 Dawn. All right, next up is blue. So blue is pretty cool. I think all of it, I think pretty much all of blue in OP05 can be supported with or. So next up is blue. And I think blue is pretty good. I think pretty much everything in blue supports Sakazuki. There's not really much, there's not that many cards that don't. Like Sakazuki is such a good generic leader. So I don't really need to tell you. But when it comes down to it, you know, Hound Blaze is not too bad for decks like Sakazuki and Rebecca. If you're playing a Navy variant of Rebecca, kudos to you, but you're probably not doing that. The only reason why I say Rebecca is because now you have a 2k or 2 cost 3k, give something to Luffy for that extra boost, or give that 3k for extra boost, and then bottom deck a blocker. Ulti's awesome, and Sakazuki, Sanji, and Blue Purple Croc, all of these guys can utilize her ability to look at the top 3, pick one, and then return them back to the bottom of the deck. It's perfect going second. It has counter power, and it is a 5k. You know, if this was like a 3-5 that had the same effect, it wouldn't be as good. But because it is a 4-5, it is actually a pretty solid card. Drake is awesome in blue Dofi because you need to stack your deck. Blue Croc because, well, it is just blue Croc. It's just generic enough to be decent. And then Queen also can utilize this because now Queen has another searcher outside of 3-drop Dofi. It is bigger, so it is like their own like Queen, the non-purple one, or the purple one, I guess. And then Borsalino, you already know, Sakazuki can reduce things quite a bit as far as their costs. 4 or less is going to be perfect for him. Is a little less good in pretty much any other deck. Blue Croc is good because now you have a bigger body that you can remove 2 4 costs with. So the leader effect as well as Borsalino is going to be pretty Gucci. And now finally Hina, a little bit of a stretch, but I think it's worth mentioning as a card because it is just a draw one. And that's perfect for, again, Sakazuki, Sanji, later into the game. Nami even, again, later into the game. I don't know if you want to pay 3 for it, but it is a consideration. Ivankov, of course, if you want to play a little bit more to that style. I know with Ivankov players, it is a little bit different where sure, you want to draw cards, but you also want to use them. I think 3 is just enough for you to kind of have another body on board to swing with, and just to use the rest of your Dawn to get to a lower hand count. All right, finally, yellow. So again, a lot of these cards support Enel, just like how Sakazuki supported. You know, this kind of comes down to if you want to run Sky Island stuff in your yellow decks. That's really what it comes down to. Althor is generic enough to be put in really any yellow deck. If you're aggressive enough with Katakuri, that 2 or less is going to be pretty easy. Yellow Purple Croc can use Blast Breath into this, which is great. Yamato is a little bit different, but it is enough to be worth mentioning. Satori basically can go into any yellow deck as a 2K and just as a trigger card, but is really effective in Enel because obviously you're using life manipulation, Bella Betty because you need all the triggers in the world. Katakuri is just Katakuri. You manipulate life. If you see this, you can take it, or as a 2K that is, or you can play it off, which is great. Gadatsu is a little bit better in any deck that plays 8-cost Katakuri because now you can use his effect later into the game and not really worry about it. Sometimes Gadatsu becomes like a 5-6 vanilla. So usually if you're playing 8-cost Katakuri, it's a little bit better because now you can add stuff to their life, and it's a little bit easier to get that on play KO effect, or at least make it effective. You can probably play anything to pop a 1-cost, but you know. Ohm is awesome. I think you should consider to play both Ohm and as well as Enel in any yellow deck. It's a cool little archetype with the Holly. If you add in a lot of the Silent, then you can start playing the Searchers. But honestly, you know, it's not that bad. It's a 6K swing. You can search and kind of double back into playing them. And then Enel is just a hard to get rid of 7-cost 7 that has rush. There's not really too much else to say about him. So yeah, so the 4-drop Rebecca is perfect in Sakazuki. If you haven't watched my video on it, you get to play the Hina, the minus something, and then or you can just grab literally any 3 to 7 costs from your drop, which includes 2Ks, and then play a 3 costs out of your hand afterwards. I think Rebecca is a super strong card, and again, you can consider it for Sakazuki. Rebecca is not too bad because you are putting stuff into the drop. You can play out your Kairos as well, which is pretty sick. You can grab back your Barts or whatever it may be in Rebecca as well. It's perfect for her. Garb can utilize it depending on what sort of archetype that you're putting in. Garb is pretty, you know, not only niche in, you know, like a cult classic, but also, you know, I think he is generic enough to put whatever archetype that you want, CP9 or whatever, Navy, whatever. And of course, speaking of Rob Lucci, because you are going to be trashing things if you're playing the Dressrosa stuff or the CP9 stuff. Rob Lucci, don't really need to say anything about the 4-drop. He is so good. Just consider him for any black deck and anything that you basically will be utilizing your trash with, because you do need those 3. Like later on, you might get it just naturally in any black deck, but just in general, if you are playing stuff that trashes things, especially if you're playing brand new, especially if you're playing like Spandom, stuff like that, this is really good. Mancheri is literally the same thing. It's just that you are getting something 3 to 5 from the drop, so or for the trash. So pay 2, you get literally anything that you want, and it sets up your turn or the following turn, or for some defense if you're getting a 2K. And the one like soldier, yeah, I mean, it's just another option. It is a 2K. That's the difference between this and a couple other things. It's sort of like Tsuru. It's just that now it goes to the trash. So something like Rob Lucci or literally anything that you need into the trash, especially since this is a Dressrosa option. You just need to consider this for like Rebecca or anything that's playing that archetype. All right, that's all I have for this video. I babbled a little bit, but that's okay. I think I've shown you the cards that you should really consider for OP05. If I miss any, that's okay. Go ahead and let me know in the comments below and help each other out. I'll see you in the next one.